Hi everybody, welcome to Russell Heritage Golf. Today we're going to be talking about the key feature of the golf swing. It's that start towards that feeling when we're hitting the golf ball, and as ever it's going to be very much rotation orientated, because the better that you can rotate in the golf swing, it's going to massively improve your game, your athleticism, but it's also going to improve that impact position. What we did, just to clarify, and what we've been doing on the channel, is that we've either been doing drills where we've been using things like canes or other objects so that you can get that sort of feedback, say, from contact or either a visual perspective. And we've also been doing drills that are orientated much more about muscular activation to bring your awareness towards sort of different muscle groups that should be working hard in your golf swing. Today is going to be essentially both of those. Where we were in the last video, and if you missed that, I'd certainly watch that after this one and put the two together, is that what we were basically saying is that when we get set up, the trail hand's going to be lower than the lead hand, and when we generally do things like shift weight in the golf swing, as we see with professional golfers, you're likely to move slightly towards your trail side in the backswing position. So similar to if I pause at left arm horizontal, you can see the way I've moved slightly off the golf ball. And what we were saying in the last video is that, well, what we want to do now is, as we complete the backswing, so as I continue to rotate not only my hips and shoulders, you start to re-establish that center position, so you can see the way I start to move more back over the ball while still completing the backswing. The importance of this exercise, and that's where we use the bench, is that you still need to make sure when you're doing that, that you're staying in posture. And you still need to maintain these sort of feelings of really turning the pelvis into the leg. So it's this sort of movement that moves you back, because we need the weight to still stay predominantly on the right hand side to be able to do the thing that we're going to do today. So we are now hypothetically in a position where we are completed the top of the backswing position. We're starting to initiate the downswing, and the weight is obviously going to be predominantly on that trail side, even though we've moved back into a centering position. What we obviously need to do is we need to clear the left side out of the way. So we see with professional golfers, they're anything from whatever, different ranges of motion, but obviously they're massively open in terms of the hips at that impact position. And you need that. You need that to basically just create space. You need that to create a sequence in your golf swing, and you need that to generate an element of power as well. So we need the hips to start opening in the early transition. The biggest thing is that when you generally see amateur golf swings, if you know that you're lacking rotational movement, you're not necessarily going to be kind of 40 degrees closed at impact. You're generally going to have rotated yourself back to square. The problem is that what doesn't happen is that you don't open quick enough in the transition, and this means that you don't end up kind of creating this sort of separation, which means the lower body's working at a faster rate than the upper body, and you're getting the clearance earlier by definition by the time the lead arm is at horizontal. So one common denominator that we see with all professional golfers is by the time they get themselves back to left arm horizontal, the hips are back to square to target, and this is exactly what we're talking about today. So you're going to bring an element of consciousness to that position, left arm horizontal. You're going to bring an element of consciousness that you want the pelvis back to parallel towards your imaginary ball to target line in this position. What you're also going to do is that if I kind of again swing up towards the top here and pause, or even if I kind of pause in the recentering position, as we start the downswing, we basically want to get the feeling that we're going to be turning back in towards our lead leg. So my belt buckle and my chest is going to be moving this way, which means you can see the way the cane goes down. So it doesn't go up. And this is, again, golfers that tend to move too much this way. This goes up, this means you get trapped, this means you get flippy. Apart from going more down and around, this means that you're basically clearing. So it's exactly the same sort of analogy as throwing a ball. If you imagine you were going to throw a ball, you would kind of be stepping in, but you'd be pulling the lead leg back without any significant weight on it. If you shift an excessive amount of weight, you're going to really struggle to alleviate the weight off that without ruining your sequence. I don't want to go into it today, but inevitably the weight will eventually re-establish itself back in that leg, and that's when then you'll be extending through the hit. So we don't want to swing up towards the top of the backswing and have the weight on the left, because you'll have to extend too early. So these are key features that, like I said, we're going to talk about more and more. So key thing number one to clarify is that you're going to be trying to rotate the hips in the early transitioning towards the golf swing. Key thing number two is that if you use a belt, if you place a alignment rod or some sort of stick through your belt loops, you want it to be going down in the early golf swing. And drill number 3, going back onto this. So from that sort of perspective today, which I thought would be interesting because it's different, if I kind of get myself and place myself, say 2 fingertips distance away from the bench, as I kind of swing back, you can see the way I push it back onto its front legs. And then as I transition to kind of move clearing this left leg back, but also moving in a downward fashion, so everything's pointing down, you can see the way I get to a stage where both hips are back on the bench. So it's not like I get one on the bench and the other one comes off. And that's what I've been saying. That's why it's really important that you get this sort of fall in motion, and then from here you can feel like you're pivoting around that and going very much downward, and that's going to help initiate that swing and then get you rotating through the ball. So you're going to extend in the golf swing, you're going to come up in the golf swing, you're going to use your hands and your arms in your golf swing. The thing where you want to be most conscious, in my opinion, about hip rotation is possibly not at impact. Like being aware of it's okay, but you don't necessarily want to be rotating hard at impact. You want to be rotating harder in transition. And transition is that area between the sort of top of the backswing position to lead arm horizontal. So those are the kind of drills which I'd like you to practice. To put this into context first and foremost, I post videos every day. And the reason why, and those that are participating in the online lessons understand that, first thing is, do I expect you to do all of the things? It's up to your endeavourment essentially. But what I would say is we know how pros move, and if you practice well and you break it down, it'll improve 100% what it is that you're currently doing anyway. So even if out of some of these videos you just improve your rotation and the feeling of load, that will significantly enhance your game. The way that it works with the online lessons is similar to today, is that they just do drills, they video those drills, they send them back, and I'll go, oh yeah, good job, or can you do X, Y, Z? So you guys can massively learn off this platform as long as you are practicing the drills and you're mindful that you're doing them very correct as well. So we've concluded our sort of backswing position. We've concluded this sort of feeling of the falling and recentering. We have now started to talk about the initiation of the golf swing. Now, obviously, by the time we get to left arm horizontal, and if we were to pause, the weight would have re-established itself back in the left. But we're not talking about that position per se. We're talking about the position from the top to there. And that's what I'm saying. This leg needs to come back out of the way. The pelvis would need to be going back in towards the leg. And then from there, you want both hips to stay out of the way to avoid any sort of early hip extension. Next video, obviously we'll be talking about this left arm horizontal and this sort of extension towards the hip position in much more detail. Hopefully you enjoy the video. Always appreciate a thumbs up and a like. Remember, it's absolutely free to press that subscribe button. If you're going to do so, press the little bell icon. Get yourself some sort of feedback. That's what I say to everybody on the online. Get yourself an alignment stick again in front of the mirror to make sure that it's going downward. If you're struggling to get it to go downward, remember, everything's got to be pointing down. And then the last point was make sure that the lower body is working at a faster rate of rotation. So introduce an element of consciousness to that first and foremost. Catch up with you soon.